That's never gonna happen. So let's talk about what's real. So what's real? Shimakaze, possibly the best frontline DPS in the game, according to the Chinese data miner. They said that Shimakaze can reach around 1085 DPS, which put in perspective is like 200 or something more DPS than Drake. You know, that's on paper, you know, always it's day one information, take with a grain of salt. You know, the guy does his best to, like, what do you call it, predict the DPS, but, you know, then you have to, like, actually level up. But I have no doubts about Shimakaze DPS, because every ultra rare in the game is OP and meant to be broken, so it wouldn't make any sense to make Shimakaze any less. Survivability wise, I would say regular destroyer survivability, like a regular top tier survivability. So without nothing crazy, not Yukikaze level survivability. But the positive is, like, with Shinano, she reaches around Cleveland survivability. So she can't be a main tank ever, but she can be a good off tank. Basically, the best positioning for Shimakaze is an off tank, which means on the rear, if you guys know, on the top right position. If you guys are noobs, you don't know what it means, the rear or the front. So yeah, you can put it in the middle. The thing is, like, you probably want to have other buffers as well, or anti-air units in the middle usually, so she can definitely endure as an off tank or middle position, depending on the you know. Man, this loading screen is so nice. I love anchovies. Nice anchovies loading screen. So what else? What I wanted to say before to close the Shimakaze TLDR. So yeah, the destroyer buffs, I haven't seen any data for now that actually tell me they gave, like, a substantial survivability buff. So I think destroyers wise probably just have more DPS to justify their presence. We can see probably more shift in the meta in some maps in the current end game. So we don't know how World 14 is gonna be. Once World 14 will come out, you know, I'll analyze and we will see, and I'll tell you if anything meaningful came out of the new changes. And, you know, it's like, if they can be viable in that end game. For now, we can't really know. There's some changes about auxiliary buffs and whatnot, but I don't know the extent, and I want to see the EHP list before. I'm just very skeptic, because right now the 30% on some of them, and also, like, being only some of them, definitely underwhelming. So I think, like, the destroyer buff can be great. It definitely probably improved a lot the DPS of the already strong units to justify their presence. So probably in some maps, so let's say you don't need anti-air, you want to bring, like, you don't need, like, let's say World 14 hypothetically doesn't need Sandy Retro or an anti-air unit, or you can somehow run something else and put, like, a destroyer as an off tank, or in the middle. Definitely Shimakaze and the OP ones that got the buff, you know, will probably do more damage. Now the thing is, like, will they do more than, like, Helena debuffing the entire fleet, you know, the entire enemy fleet? Then we have to find that out, because usually you go for a tank, a buffer, so like anti-air carry in the end game, the current one, when it comes down to World 13. So the lead position, you need a tank. The other one, you need an anti-air carry usually. And then the last one is usually Helena, the best choice, because she has the strongest debuff in the game. You know, you can do it without Helena. I didn't use Helena when I did World 13 in the global. So nowadays, if we have, like, you know, Kitakaze and Shimakaze, like, you know, those that actually, if they do substantial more DPS, you know, Helena also, it's RNG, so, like, but her debuff has been the strongest debuff in the game since the beginning, since forever, and probably always will be until they power creep it and release a stronger debuff. You know, you can stack her debuff with, like, Duke of York and so on. So, like, the present destroyer has to justify taking off Helena, if you were talking about a DPS min-maxing point of view. Then I would say, let's say you put Shimakaze instead of Helena, and you lose a little bit of DPS, but it's around the same, but maybe more consistent, right? In that specific scenario, then, you know, you don't need, like, to to rely on Elena at all, even now. So, you know, it's just like more room for like different choices, and we have to see the bosses, we have to see so that, you know, there's so like uncertainty in the future because I can't predict how World 14 is gonna be. Maybe World 14 is gonna have like even more buffs for destroyers. They maybe have other plans. Maybe they're gonna release new auxiliary items that will buff any further. Like for now, it seems a mild buff when it comes down to survivability. I don't see any. I didn't see any crazy stuff for the auxiliary buffs. So anyways, that's a rundown for Shimakaze. Chikuma is a pretty tanky unit, so pretty good as a tank. Nothing crazy, like nothing like I compared to like the Chinese Datamine compared it to San Francisco, which is pretty high survivability. I guess you think he meant also with Shinano. But Shinano actually, no. Shinano buffs only Destroyer's evasion, no? I have to check. I think so. But anyways, she has like the evasion rate thing that it's kind of, it's like, not RNG, but it's not up all the time. Like, she has 10% evasion rate, but it's not up all the time. If that was up all the time, she would definitely be even tankier. She's definitely tanky with 20% damage reduction. And good stat line. Wait, what is the Datamine thing? Let me open the... Yeah, Shinano like only buff Shimakaze survivability. So we like with Shinano, Shimakaze gets around Cleveland EHP according to the Chinese Dataminer. I checked my own EHP because also like even Shimakaze's skill is like at intervals. Like basically Shimakaze gets more survivability every time she reload torpedoes, right? And it's like for 10 seconds, so there's gonna be like 15 seconds around more or less of downtime. Because like if we assume like a torpedo mount without any reload is around 27 seconds, 26 seconds. Then you add the reload, maybe it's like 24. But anyways, 15, 14 downtime. So like the interval not gonna make Shimakaze that tanky. She's definitely tankier than the average destroyer, as expected as an ultra rare. She's probably around or a bit more of Tashkent. Tashkent was one of the highest for like DPS. Like I'm talking about the DPS wise, the good DPS destroyers. Because yeah, Yukikaze has more survivability, like 13,000 around on my HP list. So it's like almost 1,000 more than Shima. But Yukikaze doesn't do any damage compared to like to Shimakaze. If what the Chinese Dataminer is saying is true, Shimakaze DPS is very out of the roof. How you say it? It's like it's not even close to any other destroyer we had in the game. So pretty interesting to see once I'll max Shimakaze and see the recount and trying multiple bosses. I'm pretty sure you can make Shimakaze viable in the current end game as an off tank already. You can put like a regular tank, whatever you have. Any good heavy cruiser. Now this has so many. San Francisco, Azuma if you're a big baller. Speaking of which, I just got the Fate Simulation the other day, if you guys were here. Agir in the future. They were like Cheshire. Ron, if you're, you know, an old school Ron simp. And so on. Even Portland. And then you put like whatever you need in the middle. If you need anti-air, you put Sandy, you put Cheshire, you put even Isuzu as usually. I'm talking about the current end game we have right now. So even if thinking about the future, if we get an anti-air map, like a plane, you know, like a higher core plane map, like World 13, but even more, in let's say I'm hypothetically speaking, if that happens in World 14, I'm pretty sure Shimakaze can be viable as an off tank in there, because you can just tank with a real tank. She has enough to survive as an off tank. The insane DPS could justify her presence, and then we have to like compare to Jesus Christ. Do you see do you hear the honk? Some Hong Kong clown outside of my house. Sorry for that. Distracting me from what I want to say. Anyways, so yeah, I think Shimakaze looks pretty promising, DPS and stat line wise. And to conclude with Chikuma, like basically it's another CV buffer. So I think Chikuma is great as a tank. So if you want to use her as a tank, she's DPS wise, the Chinese Dataminer says it's actually worse than Ron, And Ron already is not the best DPS. Maybe Ron Muse is a bit better, actually. So, anyways, Chikuma is not a great DPS. She just doesn't have a Mangan Mount +1. Just regular Torpedo Heavy Cruiser with really good tankiness. Really good tankiness. And the meaningful part, I think, it's the buff she has. She slowed down the enemy fleet. Is it with the barrage? I think with the bombs, if I recall correctly. And she buffs IGN CVs even more when she hit, I think, or when... Yeah, you just gotta read it, dude. I read it earlier. I guess if you want to reread the skills, let me double check what it says, the text. But I checked earlier, so I'm pretty sure that's... So like, I would run probably Chikuma in a niche scenario, like, because I don't need any other tank. If you need a tank, then level up Chikuma. If you already have 1 million tanks, she's gonna fit a niche where you can use her to make, like, you know, to buff more IGN CVs. If there is an IGN CV alive in the fleet when the barrage trigger, I mean, you only need one to proc it, so I assume she buffs everyone. I have to double check that. So let's say you run Shinano, and then you have Formidable and Arc Royal, you know, for the triple CV setup. She can work well, because she, if there is an IGN CV alive, when the barrage triggers, the barrage seaplane bombs have 50% chance. It's a 50% chance though. It's a 50-50, so it's a bit of RNG. Not very, what do you call it, consistent. It's a coin flip, so, you know, I don't think it's like very crazy, very... Still like good to have. I think the reduce, what is it? Enemies hit by the barrage seaplane bombs have 30% reduced speed for 5 seconds. So that's gonna happen every 20 seconds. So every 20 seconds, you will have speed 30 you will apply by the enemy hit by the bombs of Chikuma. If you guys don't know, if you guys haven't seen, check the Datamine. She has seaplanes with the barrage. So every 20 seconds, spawn the barrage with the seaplanes. If the bombs hit the enemy, 30% speed reduction on the enemy, which is good to slow down them. And if you can synchronize, you know, with your battleship. But she's more of a CV thing, so I don't know. Like, CVs go over 20 seconds as well, so it can be interesting for some interaction. I don't think like she's gonna be crazy. I think you want to level her if you want that niche and if you need a tank. Other than that, I think everyone should level up Shimakaze, of course. She's the main MVP of the event as expected. Very, very sad about Katsuragi, nothing to talk about that, so that's pretty much the TLDR. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Now we can talk about something else. How are you guys? How was your